Hi, welcome to another video. This is Bharat Divyan from Zugzwang Academy. I've often wondered, why do people love solving puzzles? What is it that makes us so attracted to mystery? And I think there is an element of curiosity which is so deep seated within the human nature that we're curious about knowing the unknown, you know. And puzzles basically gives you things which are unknown. And if you are a person who's very curious, then you definitely want to, demystify the mystery. You want to know the unknown. So that is one of the driving factors of why we tend to love puzzles. And one type of puzzle is where you tend to work backwards. So something is given to you, something is established, something is already said that this has happened. This is the verdict of what has happened. And your job is to work backwards to figure out how did this actually get to that place. So an example of a puzzle like this would be a typical Sherlock Holmes mystery novel, right? Where the crime has already happened. And then your job as a reader is to go through the journey with Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson to demystify what really happened. In a similar fashion, chess also has such puzzles, the Sherlock Holmes puzzles, the mystery puzzles, which is you have a move that has already been declared as the best move. And typically you'll see this in Grandmaster games where, a move is made and without much explanation, the opponent resigns. These moves are called MOTD, move of the day, or magic moves. And there's plenty of such moves and such games that's available on the internet. And if you ever come across one, a beautiful exercise, a wonderful exercise for your gray cells for analysis would be to actually see why did the opponent resign? Why did he resign after this magical move? Why did he resign after this move of the day? So one such move is what we're going to be looking at today. And this is a game between Larsen and Christiansen in 1991. The move is Rook G8 check and Black resigned. Your job is to figure out why. So if you can pause the video, set this position and try it out, fantastic. If not, let's continue. Okay, let's think about what are the options. And in fact, the lesson that I would like to kind of stress on here is the concept of Zugzwang or forced moves. When your opponent is basically forced to do certain things, he doesn't have much of a choice, he doesn't have much of an option but to force himself into positions that he might not like. That is in the sense the core of problem solving in chess. So here, for instance, the king has only two options. He can either capture the rook or escape. Now between these two, what do you think is more likely? Most likely it would be capturing the rook. Now the job is to figure out, can you continue this streak of Zugzwang, which is, can you continue to make forcing moves? So the next forcing move is often a check. So this is the check we're looking at. Now if you look at this, thanks to the knight controlling f7, the king is forced to come here. But what after this? What's your next forcing move? What is the next forcing check that you have? The queen doesn't have much of a check. The knight cannot give a check, so you have a pawn which gives you a check. Now the king is forced to capture this. And you can basically give a check here. Now the king again has two options here. One is to go to g7 and the other is to go to g5. And the more likely option is to go to g7 because you're trying to escape away from this. The problem is now the queen and the knight both are attacking f6. You have a check, king is forced to go there, knight h6 is checkmate. And therefore, you can logically conclude that if somebody were to do an analysis here, g7 is not where you want to go, g5 is where you want to go. And guess what? You still have this check where the king is forced to go back. And now you can get back to this check. And at this point, if he goes here, you know the continuation, which is queen check, king to g8, knight checkmate. But what if he goes back in this case? And now you have a straight HOD checkmate, which is game over. Right? So therefore, it's a bit of a detour here, but nevertheless coming to the point of a checkmate. So when I have knight g4 check, king would most likely come here. There is a check. King would most likely go back. I have a check. He goes back. A check here. He goes back here, and this is going to happen. This is the most likely outcome because this takes the longest number of moves, and therefore this is what a computer would basically say would be the possible continuation. Most likely, when you're playing a human opponent, this might not happen. Okay, now let's go back to the beginning. After rook g8 check, if capturing the rook is an inevitable checkmate no matter what in 3 different lines, either it's a knight h6 check here or knight h6 check in the 8th move or the queen g5 check in the 7th move, one of these 3 possibilities. So what if I just not take it? What happens then? What is my check in that case? So in this case, you have a knight check. The king is forced to capture the pawn. He has no other option but to do that. What do you do here? This is where you can do a discover check. So you realize that the queen is also giving a check here. The king is forced to go back. You can do a check here, and this time the king comes back. But unfortunately, last time, you had this queen coming to f6, which would finish the game. But the queen is now on d1, and there's nothing much to be done. So this is where you have to play a silent move, which is knight to e5 check. Once the king moves out here, there is no specific check. You can keep doing it in repetition, but it doesn't work out. The silent move that you need to make is g4. This move is so powerful that black can absolutely not do anything to prevent this checkmate. So checkmate is coming in 2 different ways, which is this pawn push is checkmate. So what can black do? He can prevent it, but not really, because now the f pawn takes g5, gives a check, and it's mate. So if pawn push is checkmate, then what else can the king do? King can't move anywhere. Let's say he decides to bring this rook and prevent the queen from moving anywhere. It's still checkmate because the queen just needs to have his influence on g4 and h5. He doesn't really have to move his queen anywhere. So it's still checkmate. So as you can see, this is the beauty of the move of the day. So rook g8 finishes the game because it's a forced checkmate in 6, 7 or 8 moves maximum, no matter what black does. It's a complete zugzwang position, right? But the key idea of solving this puzzle is not so much as knowing the answer, but it's the process of solving and understanding that there were actually close to about 4 lines in the first variation where king takes rook, and 2 lines in the second variation where the king doesn't take the rook. And knowing all of this and understanding that all of these variations are part of an analysis tree, and being able to grasp this entire analysis tree, what you see on the right, this particular part, being able to see that is what makes you good at analysis in chess and also good at solving puzzles and mysteries in general. I hope you like this video. If so, please do share, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much.